How's my hair? How's my makeup? Am I looking good?
Oh, you got it going on.
Well, this is why it's called a pre-show.
Good hair day.
Yeah. I can't see stuff now. There's the camera.
I took mine off.
Hello. 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 Hello.
Well, we weren't able to start with LinkedIn, but that's okay. They were always changing stuff. But anyway, as I was saying before, LinkedIn crashed us and let us start over again. Used to watch the Three Stooges every night, right before the Late Show. Does anybody remember the tune? If you're old enough.
The syncopated clock.
What's that?
That's called the syncopated clock.
Is that what that is?
Yes, that's the name of that song.
What did Wayne and Garth say? I was not aware of that. Anyway, welcome to Lunch with Mike. Anybody got a better title for the program? Put it in the comments. I'm always looking for new and interesting stuff. Now, just to be clear, I'm looking at my computer screen, the actual broadcast, and camera's up here. So I'm going to be back and forth, and I have another monitor over here that has the comments and all the links that I'm going to dump onto you so that you can get, what do we got? We have Government Contracts Made Easier, the Personas Guide, Players and Layers Methodology, Federal Business Intensive, and Federal Business Breakthrough Application. I have no idea what any of this stuff is. I come from the GSA world, so you guys probably know what it is. I don't, but let's move on. Every Tuesday, we're streaming, obviously not to 4 platforms because Twitter didn't show up and LinkedIn didn't show up, so I have no idea what the heck's going on. Let's get started with the agenda. We've already done our introductions. We have our guest interview today, and I'm not going to tell you who she is yet, even though if you paid attention and went to the website, you know who it is. And we have a very, very special sponsor today.
Hey, Mike.
Hello. No, you're the guest. I want to go back to the sponsor. We always have to give the interviewee, I'm the interviewer, interviewee, a sponsorship. So our special guest today is Judy Bradt, and let's find out a little bit about who this individual is. Tell me a little bit about what you do, who you are, and why you're here. It's about time that we actually got a chance to interact with all of what's considered to be the industry leaders and experts in government sales and marketing. And Judy's been around. I'm not going to say it because you never ask a woman how old she is. She's 29 with you figure out how many years experience. That's not me.
Now, Mike, we got to stop doing that. I own every one of my 63 years, and I've spent almost 35 of them in government contracting arena. It's been a joy to explore, to learn, and to share with thousands of business owners the things I've learned on the road. Wouldn't have it any other way.
The commercial said, I didn't do it. She did it. So I'm 71, and actually 1 year over half of my life has been doing nothing but GSA. 1986. And we all know where that ended up going. So,
and you're a couple of years ahead of me. I got into GovCon in 1988 when I left my home and family and ran away to the United States. And we'll hear more about that if you're ready for the story in just a few minutes.
Wait a minute. You ran away to the United States from where? Georgia?
Canada.
Oh.
Canada, hon.
You're allowed to laugh. I'm going to make her laugh before we're done.
Oh, good luck with that.
Yep, guaranteed.
That's like telling me you're going to tickle me, and I really don't like that part either.
There you go. We all know who said that. All right, let's get to the slides because we have limited time and a lot. We have 44 slides. How did I know that? She told me. Judy, it's all yours, and I'm going to be
Hey,
monitoring the comments, dropping the links, and I will be
excellent.
muted, but I'll be able to hear you.
All right. And I hope you'll come back on if you got a question, and please relay questions from our live streaming platforms. I want to make this as much fun and valuable and interactive for you as I possibly can.
Great.
So here we go. I'm here to bring you the best of 35 years I've spent in the federal arena and bring you links and resources. Get ready, because at the end of our time together, I'm going to ask you, what was your aha? What was the thing you really learned? And what action are you going to take based on what you learned today? So here's what we're going to cover: a sales tale, why government contractors don't make calls, 3 secrets, players and layers, power techniques, action steps, and resources. So let's get right to it. I was so afraid of selling that I literally left the country. I was coming out of business school in Canada, and IBM was hiring business graduates hand over fist. And I thought, this is going to be great. They said, you're going to help use technology to help people achieve their business goals. I went, awesome. This was 1984, when the PC was just coming out of the lab, off the slab in Boca Raton, and changing the face of computing forever. It took me 6 months to realize that I was employed by the planet's largest sales organization. I was so horrified that I literally left the country. Sales? No, I wanted to be a consultant. I left my home and my family, the computer industry, went down to work at the Canadian Embassy in Washington. And over the next 25 years, I became Canada's top expert in helping Canadian companies win American federal contracts under the trade agreements, and often teamed with American companies. And in 2003, over those 15 years, I became Canada's top expert in helping those Canadian companies. And then 2003, I thought I wanted to work in more depth and creativity than I could have if I had stayed. So I started my own company. And over the next 25 years, I counseled thousands of companies. I wrote a book. I could tell you anything you wanted to know about federal contracting, anything at all, except for one thing. How did anybody actually close the business? It wasn't that I didn't want to tell you. I honestly didn't know, which didn't matter till the day it really, really did. I will save that story for another day, but I will tell you that until I hit that crucible moment, because I misunderstood what sales was all about, I did the math, and my failure to understand what sales really was cost me over $1 million in foregone business. That shouldn't happen to anybody. Neither should the full year I spent scared and losing sleep and not understanding what was happening for me when I was on the front line doing sales in the federal arena. At the end of that year, I thought nobody should spend a year the way I just spent one. How could I make that easier for somebody else? Here's what nobody knew back in 1988, at the time that I really wish I had known what sales was about. We are not thinking machines that feel. We are feeling machines that occasionally think. There's Antonio Damasio, is a scientist who was one of those working with brain scans and looked at the parts of our brains that actually light up when we're making decisions. And so sales is actually a lot about connecting with real humans and what people feel. The way to the head is through the heart. The big secret that most government contractors discover way too late is this: federal contracting is a relationship game. It's also a team sport, by which I don't mean teaming with insert name of large giant contractor, but the team you build within your company. So hold that thought for a minute, all right? And so, gosh, there's so many people in the federal government who need what you do. Where do you start? If you feel overwhelmed, that's absolutely normal. There are literally millions of federal humans who need what you do. So now what? I'll always remember this conversation I had with Mike Osredker, a lovely, genial fellow from the Midwest whose human resources company had sent him out to Washington, D.C. to learn how to win federal contracts. And we kept meeting every week over this business over breakfast meeting. And he sat down with me after coffee, after one of these sessions. He said, Judy, selling to the federal government is like swimming in the ocean with no mileposts. I went, ooh. It was his heartfelt admission that kicked me over into saying, I need to get my book finished. I need to write down the things that I know to make that easier. That's why my book is called Government Contracts Made Easier, because easy is fiction. More about that later. But wait a second. Selling? One of the biggest misconceptions about federal contracting is that it's some kind of antiseptic proposal process and there are no humans involved, or that, another big piece of fiction, federal buyers won't talk to you. In fact, we need to sell. But here's the cool thing. Sales is just one conversation, one person, one step at a time. One person, one conversation, one step at a time. That's it. So secret number one is your federal buyer's not just one person. There are 5 people you need to meet. And I'm going to tell you a little bit, and maybe a story or two, about each of them as you see how this fits together. Because if you've done business in the commercial arena, as well as in federal, if you really sit down and think about it, there's usually not just one person that's involved in some way in the decision to engage you and your company to buy what you do. And so, layer number 1, contracting. All right. Now, when I worked at the Canadian Embassy, I actually had a kind of a mixed role because I was managing a program and managing funds, but I also got to choose the contractors that I wanted to work with. But nothing could happen without the people in the finance section. And that person rotated down from Canada and turned over. Well, I was having a great time spending money, just all the authorized funds I wanted to spend with working with the contractors I wanted to work with. And then suddenly there was a new sheriff in town. Bill Cummings had rotated down from Ottawa, and suddenly nothing was getting spent. Nothing was getting approved. No vendors were being chosen. I went, well, this isn't very good. And everyone was upset. And I thought, all right, how hard can this be? And I walked downstairs to the 3rd floor and plunked myself in his office. I said, Mr. Cummings, my name is Judy. I would like you to tell me how things work. He said, well, I'm so glad you asked. There are just all of these people. They're not paying attention to the rules. They're not doing this. They're not doing that. I said, Bill, tell me how I should do it. I said, well, you need to do this and submit this, and this has to look like this, and I need to see this and this and this and this. I said, yes, sir. Suddenly, I was the only one who was able to spend money, get my contractors approved, get the vendors I wanted, and run my programs, because I got the word from that particular contracting officer in that office about how it worked for him. Now, even though I was working for the Canadian government, the person in that role, the person in that contracting role, is somebody that shows up in every single transaction when a buyer does business with a federal contractor in the U.S. federal government. Same is also true in its own form or extent in state, in local, in corporate. So that person in contracting has the legal authority to sign or approve an agreement between a vendor and the buying entity. And so the contracting layer has an authority in the federal government that the President of the United States does not have the power to bind you and your company to these United States to deliver your products or services. They have a ton of power. However, they're only one of the players, because the contracting officer at the end of the day is on the hook for all the rules and the laws that have to be followed and complied with in order to award the contract. But there's another person that you might see a lot more of in the federal arena, and that's a small business specialist. Now, the small business specialist is 99.9% of the time, they're not your buyer. There are thousands of them. They have inward-facing and outward-facing responsibilities in the federal arena, facing in toward their agency. They're the ones who are peering over the shoulder of the contracting shop saying, why didn't you award that to small business? What efforts have you made to award that contract to small business? Small business specialists and team are negotiating their goals with the Small Business Administration for contract awards to small business. Looking outward into the federal arena where the vendors are, it's their job to navigate and in some cases do a little bit of gatekeeping and provide assistance and guidance to vendors who want to win contracts. Ironically, the more work you've done to prepare for your conversation with them, the more helpful they're going to be. The vast majority of conversations they have with industry go something like, hi, I'm a service-disabled, veteran-owned, 8A woman-owned business in the hub zone. What do y'all do? Where are the contracts for me? Don't be that person. The game changes completely when you have chosen your agency with care. You've read the things they publish. You've looked at past contract awards. You've looked at the current contracts on the street. You've looked at the forecast. You've showed the small business specialist where you think you can be helpful, how that relates to your past performance and your capability statement. You say, here are the things I've done. Here's the projects where I think I can be helpful. Here's past performance that shows I'm the low risk choice. Oh, and by the way, here are the contract vehicles I'm on and the small business preferences my business is eligible for. I've been trying to reach these people. Can you help me? That is a conversation that's much more likely to lead to substantive assistance that can open some doors. I had this conversation with Deborah Stallings, the CEO of a Maryland-based company called HR Anew. And Deborah had told me about the journey that she went on when she was looking to win contracts in her neighborhood at NASA Goddard Space Flight Center in Greenbelt. And she had met the people at NASA. She had reviewed the forecasts. She had gone to multiple small business events, gotten to know not just the small business specialists, but also some of the program people. And ultimately, when the small business specialist saw she was doing the work, doing the research, building relationships, showing up, the small business specialist was able to point her toward a project for a human resources contract that was about $100,000. Beautiful fit for her and what she did. So the more work you do, the more helpful the small business specialist can be. But they are not your buyer. They don't have the authority to award a contract. So remember, if you are frustrated with the amount of success that you might have had in the federal arena, and you look at the contact information for who you know, and you got lots of small business specialists, nobody in contracting, and other layers, you're not finished yet. There's other people you need to meet. So we talked about contracting a little bit. The contracting officer, who has the legal authority to sign the contract, and supported by contract specialists, who are often the ones whose names are on the solicitation. They are dotting the I's, crossing the T's, sorting out the non-compliant proposals, and the contracting officer they report to can actually sign the contract. Small business specialists we just talked about. Now, let's get into the juicy part. End user. The end user is a very deep layer. For me, when I talk about end user, that includes everybody from the warrior in the battle space, the frontline person doing tier 1 help desk support, all the way up to the program manager, everybody who's stuck with the day-to-day consequences of choosing you as a vendor. End users are all contributing one way or another to the definition of the requirement, what that federal office and program needs in terms of products or services. They will tell you a lot about what they like, what they don't like, what they need, who they like, what they wish they had done, particularly if you talk to them a long time before, 30 days out before the competition starts and there's a solicitation on the street. End users are everywhere. There are over 2.4 million current federal employees that are on LinkedIn, just as an example. Many federal agencies have employee directories. Not all of them do, which is why LinkedIn. And if you haven't looked for the end users, the people with job titles like the ones that already know and love and work with what you do, people would look for people who have those kinds of job titles in the agencies that you've chosen to work with. who have been involved in buying what you do. And so you want to have a lot of relationships with people at the end user layer. So they're cheering for you behind closed doors when the finalists for the competition are chosen, or the end user shop is able to work with the contracting shop to find easier ways to work with you that don't necessarily involve big, huge, hairy solicitations and proposals. All right. The end user has two things they need. They need products and services, and they need legal, expedient ways to get those things. It's your job as a vendor to help them solve both those problems. So, end user layer. Stakeholder. The stakeholder is the CIO, the base commander, the agency secretary. They are not in the room when you, as a vendor, are chosen. They are the ones that are going to be on the front page of the Washington Post and the Wall Street Journal if the project goes Tango uniform. They are on the hook for everything that happens in their shop and on their watch. You're probably not going to have a conversation with that person if you meet them. You're probably, at best, if you've been working with their people in the agency, you're going to be talking to them like the visionary that both of you are. You are going to be able to talk to them about what a great job their people are doing, give them a little bit of feedback. You are not ever going to ask them to please introduce you to somebody who needs what you do. The last thing you want to do is to show up having been marched down the hallway, all covered with stakeholder drool, plunked down in front of a program manager who's never met you, and the CIO says, talk to these people. You'll get the most polite meeting imaginable, and you may find it very difficult to ever see that program manager again. You've got to start from the end user layer and work on up. All right. What the stakeholder needs and the priorities that they set and the kind of money that is going to be allocated and the language that they use to talk about their problems, their missions, and their challenges. The stakeholder expresses all of that in the federal agency's strategic plan. Every one of your federal agencies has a strategic plan, and the stakeholder holds the pen on that document. If you have not read the strategic plan of an agency that you are thinking of doing business with, you better believe your competitor has. Run, do not walk. That's a take-home point. All right, so understand who the stakeholder is, so when all the other people at all the other layers mention their name, you know who they're talking about. The last layer, industry, the prime contractor. That includes both large companies and small ones who are already holding a contract for things like what you do or things related to what you do. It can include competitors who want to unseat them as well. It is rare for someone to be a forever enemy. I want you to think, is another take-home point, think about the federal contracting budget and world of opportunities, not like pie, less for you means more for me, but like dough. Add warmth and it rises and there is more for all. If somebody really wants what you do, they will find a legal, legitimate way to work with you. So the path to federal sales, what people think it looks like is this nice linear trail, and what it actually looks like is kind of higgledy-piggledy all over the place, which can, if you take that bottom string and stretch it out, that's much longer. That represents time as well as money. Now, if you want to make that much shorter, straighter, and more profitable for you, I have an idea. Come and explore with me the concept of the players and layers methodology. Acronyms out to PALM. I want you to think about it as what it would mean to have federal business in the palm of your hand for the win. Here it is. The steps are fivefold. Easy to remember, 5 fingers. You want to choose the agency that you want to work with. Make a confident choice, ideally based on hard data. In my book, I've got both hard data and qualitative ways that you can do that, but choose. Have the courage and to make a narrow choice, maybe 3 to 5 agencies tops, where you're going to go deep and really get to know people over time and build trust with them. Be visionary. Define broadly, what does success look like for us and for them if we are successful beyond our wildest dreams in serving the people in this agency? Then what kind of success are we creating for them beyond their wildest dreams? What does success look like for both of us? Dig in. Use the free resources, and if you've got paid resources, use those as well to uncover at least one player at each of those 5 layers. If you're trying to bid an opportunity, the first thing to look at is, who do we know? If the only place you have a contact is in the small business layer, I want to suggest to you that you are not terribly likely to be successful. If you have multiple contacts, especially at the end user layer, and the people in contracting know you and like you, you've got the support of the people in the small business layer, you might have had already done some teaming with or had conversations with multiple teaming partners, you've read the plan, know the stakeholder, your odds of winning are much, much better. And so discover the players at all 5 layers. Then I want to challenge you to think about what's going to be important to them. We as vendors have goals. Often they are goals for growth or profitability. Great. That language, especially of profitability and winning contracts, that doesn't sound anything like what the goal would be for a small business specialist or a contracting officer or an end user or the stakeholder. Maybe the other primes, because that's our industry layer. We're in that layer too. They want to win a contract. Everybody else, their goals are very different. The thing you want to be able to do is to map your goals onto theirs so that every single time you are in touch with those folks, your players at all the layers, the thing you're talking about or mentioning or bringing to them, they come to the realization that, oh, you get us. We're going to return Sally's call. Every time Sally calls, she gets me. She's cheerful. She's optimistic. She's not expecting we're going to award contracts, but she listens to us. She remembered my aunt is in chemo in North Carolina. She remembered that we were looking for a place to get obedience training for that puppy that we mentioned that we just got. Some of the time, the reason why they were going to remember you is because you noticed something that they just sounded really tired and stressed when they said hello. And after you remembered to say, hey, I know we said we were going to talk at 10:30. Is this still a good time to talk? It gives them the chance to say, no, actually, I'm at a family funeral right now, and I've just picked up because I thought it was someone else, and gives you the chance to back away and regroup. People will forget what you said. People will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. And that wisdom comes from Dr. Maya Angelou. So sales really isn't the problem. How we think about sales often is. And this was the big mistake that I made when I was working at IBM and couldn't wait to get out of there. So to make a long story short, the biggest thing that even experienced sales professionals are really, really afraid of is rejection. Somebody might say no. Somebody might not like us. And we are, as human beings, wired from being tiny, tiny creatures to bond with the first grown-up human we see. Because if we don't do that, we might get abandoned. But that fear of abandonment or rejection is baked into our DNA. And so to release that or decide, all right, we're grown up. We got past that point. What is it that experienced sales professionals, what is that magic secret sauce, that elixir of courage that somehow infuses into the lifeblood of great sales professionals that makes it possible for them to go, oh, no, we're making the call. I'm going to share it with you. Anybody remember who this guy is? Mike, do you remember who this guy is? Come back on. Do you remember who this guy is? I bet you do. Who's he playing? It's Jimmy Stewart, but who is he playing? It's an iconic role.
Miracle on 34th Street.
Close. It is a seasonal movie. This is George Bailey. George Bailey is scared. George Bailey is running the Bailey Savings and Loan, and George Bailey has suddenly been the victim of a cruel prank by the nasty big old banker competitor in his town. And suddenly the bank inspectors are going to come and they're going to put George Bailey out of business. And George has a wife and 3 little kids and the house is falling apart. And he's just saying, my life together is not worth $10 a pound for a bag of bones. The world were better if I had not been born. And if you haven't seen this movie, you must, because it's called It's a Wonderful Life. But I will tell you that this is the point at which George Bailey gets the opportunity to see what the world would be like if he had not been in it. I challenge you as a vendor to take George Bailey's perspective on the edge of that bridge for a minute. I want you to imagine two futures. What are the things that could happen if you were to share your expertise or solutions or guidance with a federal buyer who needs what you do? What are the things that might happen? I'm going to ask you this, Mike. What are the things that are going to put you in the vendor's chair? What are the things that can happen if you ring a ding ding, knock, knock, knock? It's Mike. Hi. What could happen if you're a federal vendor?
That reminds me of a old Cheech and Chong movie. Mike's not here. So
Gotcha.
I unfortunately didn't really have to do that during my career because I focused starting in 87 when I realized that there was such a market in 86 for GSA. But
I got it.
previous working for a lot of integrators, I also worked for Honeywell Federal. And of course, we had I remember the movie, what the heck was it? I can't remember. Anyway, it was Shall We Play a Game? War Games.
Yes, War Games.
That's
Yes.
the program I worked on at Honeywell.
Oh, wow. Wow. That is so
We didn't have to
interesting.
do any real selling or marketing. All I did was fly around the country. I looked like Chevy Chase's with all the stickers on his boxes. And
I get it.
I was promoting what Honeywell had done was took a mainframe computer. It was
open the doors for you.
Go around and
be an expert.
Show that. So.
And so your expertise or solutions or guidance. Well, and if things branch off, all right, two branches. So maybe you win a contract, maybe you don't win a contract.
Well, we had a 10-year contract, so
okay.
But it was absolutely fantastic. And
yeah,
all I did was just go around and do a dog and pony show.
Sure. So you brought ideas. Maybe they bought from you that day. Maybe they didn't buy from you. Maybe somebody already sold. But the other thing to think about, sure, let's say done one branch, you sell, you win a contract, you make money, you get referrals, blah, blah, blah. But let's say you make the offer and they don't buy. Well,
I learned one thing. I learned one thing from my boss when I got out of the service. And actually, before I even went to work at Honeywell, he said, and I was not a salesperson. I was, I don't know what the heck I was. He said, what you lack in sales ability, you make up for in product knowledge. The key is to know when to shut up and write the order.
There's that too. One of some of the things, and I have this dialogue with my clients all the time. And so let's say for a moment that somebody says no. First of all, when somebody says no, I want you to process that in your brain as not now, not now, not now, because you're going to hear no and no and no and no and no. But eventually, if you've chosen well and you keep showing up because you know you've chosen that office or that program or that agency because you know you can make a difference for them, eventually they do get to now. And the thing to remember is that conversation you have, it may be that they know somebody else you should be talking to. That's very common. If you've gone and done a great job and it's a not now, but they may know somebody else that you do need to be talking to. You have to know enough to ask the question. You might say no because your pricing is just not on. That you may learn that you've got to go back and look at your pricing. By coming back and strengthening your pricing, you may be able to win much better and much more effectively another time. You might learn that the not now came because a product or a specification or a service definition wasn't right. You get the chance to clean that up. So every one of the no is also an opportunity to learn. So as well, you may inspire a conversation with somebody else about something else. You may never know the positive effect that you have. A little like George Bailey, who had no idea all the lives he touched just because his little savings and loan chugged along and did that thing. And so imagine now all the things that might happen if you never make the offer. They never meet you. They never shake your hand. They never have that conversation about the chemo treatment that you heard about. They never had that chance to send their puppy to obedience school, which means that they didn't get sleep, which means that they slipped and fell because they weren't paying attention and they crashed into somebody else. All kinds of things might happen because they never met you. And so my question for you is, are you willing to be brave, to risk the possibility someone might say no to you for the benefit of all the upside and all the possibilities that could unfold? What we do matters to the world. In order to make that difference, we need to make the offer. At the end of the day, missions are served, security and citizens are protected, lives are safer because federal agencies are able to have the support of vendors like us, to do what they need to do. We make that difference, but to do that, we have to step up and be willing to sell. So where do I start? What do I say? How do I know I'm getting anywhere? And how do I keep going? If you're kind of feeling like the guy in the picture, that's absolutely normal to feel overwhelmed. So I come back down to this idea of individual players at individual layers. And it takes me to secret 3, the 12X rule. Somebody who's already bought from you is 12 times more likely to buy from you again than somebody who's never met you before. I bring you 2 stories. If you have already sold anything in a federal agency as a prime or as a sub, you actually probably know and have right in front of you an example of what I call a contact set, a place where you know or should know players at all of those layers. I had this conversation with some great guys at a company called Rapid Build. They're in Texas. They do hurricane resistant, Force 10 hurricane resistant, rapid construction structures and buildings. And an aircraft hangar would be an example. And they were looking to expand their federal business. And we were talking about the places where they had already done business in Nevada and California. And I said, do you have any idea all of the people who had to say yes and be on board in order for you to win that contract? They said, huh? I said, there's not only the person that you know on site construction or the program manager. There was also somebody in the contracting shop who had to sign that thing and agree that you are the low-risk choice and arrange to make sure you got paid. There's also a small business specialist who is looking at your status as a small business and making sure that the agency got credit for doing business with you as a small business. There may also have been a prime contractor that initial contract might have had to consider and decided no, they wanted to do business with you alone. So you already have a lot of thank you letters that you could be sending, thank you conversations you could be having with people who made it possible for you to learn how to serve your federal buyer well. They said, oh, I said, yeah. Thank you is one of the most powerful gifts you can give your federal buyer. There are 5 gifts. 5 gifts you can give. Wait, Federal Acquisition Regulation Part 3 on ethics says we can't give gifts. Dr. Gary Chapman has a structure. It's 25 years older, so he talks about love languages. And I'm going to see if I can get them right. These are on my website. The 5 love languages of government contracting correspond to gifts that you can give that cost nothing, are powerful, and priceless. They are talk, by which I mean words of affirmation, tasks, things that you could do that could make life a little bit easier, small things. For example, doing a little research on a competitor or on something else that they mentioned. So, time. What can you do that could save them time? Thanks. Very specifically, write them a thank you note. Tell their management they did a wonderful job in helping you and how they did it. And finally, touch, by which I mean emotional connection, warmth, gratitude, enthusiasm, the voicemail that sounds like you're genuinely excited to get their voicemail. and leave somebody with the impression, wow, if Brandy is that great to get a voicemail from, I wonder what it's like to talk to her in person. So there's an extra bonus for you. But tap the 12X rule. Go back to the people that have already bought from you. And you can not only say, thank you. When was the last time somebody said that? And hey, write this down. Our business is growing and we're looking for new projects. Oh, who wouldn't want to talk to you? Your federal buyer does not wake up in the morning going, I would like to dump a bucket of cash on Mike's head. Now they should, but they don't. The good news is they can be encouraged and trained to do this. Okay. And you say, hey, and it can feel uncomfortable to do what is objectively asking for a referral. So get past the squeaky feeling and stop squirming. Write this down. Our business is growing and we're looking for new projects. If you were me, who would you be talking to? Who do you know who would like to have that superlative product or service or experience that we've had here? If your buyer goes, oh, I know, great. If they say, oh, let me introduce you, they're your A-list people. Either way, take the handoff, take the introduction follow-up. That's a little bit of the inside of the 12X rule, okay? Understand that we don't need some big, huge, hairy contact relationship management system. Start with the people you know. I know for a fact I have spent tens of thousands of dollars sorting out bad data practices and creating all kinds of messes in an expensive contact relationship management system. It's taken me 4 years to straighten it out. Some people have really great process. I'm not one of those people who's gifted that way. A lot of people are not. At the very least, start with a simple spreadsheet, see who you know, realize who you don't know, but the data says you need to know, and start tracking down who are the players at the other layers. And you want to keep track of what did we talk to them about? When are we going to talk to them again? What's the opportunity we're talking to them about? Have it set up in a way that's easy to see. If you work, I promise you this, if you work off it, organize all of your contacts and work in a simple spreadsheet system for about 6 months and use it religiously and with structure, then if and when the time comes to invest in a bigger client relationship management system, you're going to have good data structure, good data discipline, good data hygiene, and you'll be able to do a lot more that's useful with a contact relationship management system. So what do the players at each of those layers want to hear from me? Hold that thought. I got stuff for you, okay? I want to invite you to tap one of the things that's just an inherent piece of all of our human neurochemistry, dopamine. The brain loves to win. We are wired as humans to do more of those things that experience shows help us be successful. So, and the cool thing is, I want you to think for a moment, if you're listening to this, about a big, huge honking accomplishment. You worked really, really hard. Maybe it was the law degree, or maybe it was buying your first house, or getting a certificate, getting your PMP. I want you to think, how long did the woohoo feeling last? Yeah, maybe a couple of days, maybe not that long. Your brain goes, yeah, what's next? Rather than being dismayed by that, why don't you flip that idea over? Because research shows that the woohoo of doing something small, found my car keys, got the kids' lunches packed, lasts almost as long as the big honking achievement. So if we can bring our federal humans, and we're all humans in the federal arena, but if we can bring our federal humans a tiny drip, drip, drip of little wins, great experiences, just feeling positive because they talked to us, because we cared about them, or we noticed a goal that was important to them, they're more likely to make us the first call they return. So our brains love to win. I want to challenge you to celebrate and notice even your small wins, because that also brings resilience. And heaven knows we all need that. I could talk about resilience in another chat another day, because that is another critical key for success in the federal arena. But our brains and our federal clients and partners' brains all love to win. We want to bring them those wins. Build a win. Make it your goal to build a win into every touch. Our federal humans in all of those roles have goals. They got milestones, because a milestone, it's a really long ride from October 1st to September 30th. Did we sell yet? No. Did we sell yet? No. Did we sell yet? No. So being able to notice the things that experience shows we're on track, we're making it, gives us that sense of momentum that we need to keep going. Micro engagements are a tiny interaction that either you or your federal buyer can initiate that brings both of you closer to your goals. Micro engagement, something little and sparkly, is going to be different for a player at each layer. So I want to give you that as a concept. It's very powerful. I do a whole working session with clients on that. And I let you do a mini workshop on that just using this table as a snapshot. So we've got our roles across the top, goals, milestones, micro engagements at the bottom. So there's your model, but you want to be able to brainstorm and build out 2 or 3 ideas for each player at each layer. All right. So that's a really special, powerful take home that I'm giving you just because you're on Lunch with Mike. The task can look overwhelming. The win can be months or years away. Keeping moving one step at a time is the whole ball game. James Clear, in his book Atomic Habits, does the math. And I will ask you, if I could promise you just 1% progress over where you are, 1% growth per day for 365 days, would you take it? Just 1%. That's it, based on you taking continuous action. You should want to say yes. Your intuition tells you yes. The actual number is this 1% compounded over you. That's a 38% growth. I know a lot of people that would love to have 38% growth of, say, federal sales from where you are. That's just 1% a day. Continuing to take action every day makes all the difference. Being able to have ideas for micro engagements, things you can bring people, ideas, things that make a difference. The time you spend to brainstorm ways to be in connection makes all the difference. At the end of the day, and I don't even have a slide for this, but I want you to write this down. Sales is about continually renewing consent to stay in connection. Continually renewing consent to stay in connection. It's about the relationship all the way down the line. So we've covered a lot. And we've got some time for questions. Mike, yours, stuff that you're seeing in the chat, in the platforms. But we talked about my tale of sales. Why government contractors don't make calls. 3 secrets, players and layers, power techniques. And I'm going to bring you some action steps and resources right now. Mike, do we have any ahas or takeaways? Do you have anything, given that you've been in this market longer than I have, did I tell you any one thing at all that kind of popped for you in any way?
What slide are you on?
I'm on slide 36.
All 36 helped.
Well,
the
that
answer
is
you're
high
expecting.
praise. It isn't. That is high praise from somebody who's been around since 1986 in the federal arena.
Well,
Action
here's
step.
one that I actually put in earlier, and I see the misspelling. People say no because we haven't educated them enough to say yes.
Ooh,
Remember
I
the
like that.
product marketing? What you know in what you know in product specs, a lot of times will outweigh what you don't have in sales ability. And the other one and I've learned to live by is you don't learn anything from winning.
My gamification expert also said, I love the way he said it. I have a gamification expert who helps me create sales dashboards that make it fun and exciting and let people click off the stuff and rack up little mini dopamine hits. And he said, I learn more from things that crash and burn than from the things that go well. So experience shows all of that. We live in a culture that glorifies pinnacle achievement and dismisses the long slog. Without the long slog, there is no pinnacle achievement. There is no such thing as overnight success. If you listen to me and you go, oh, she knows all about selling. I have about 5 failed sales experiences every week. You might wonder, is she stupid? Does she not learn? I learn from that all the time. There's always something that's kind of makes me, the real trick is not to go, loser, but go, all right, what did we learn? What could we do better? And to be gentle, to be self-compassionate.
You know what I have to
All of
say
those
about that?
skills are critical. What's that? Thank you, Mike. So
Well, what you don't want to hear ever, one of the best series I ever saw, and all these little snippets that we come up with, I don't care whether it's a bumper on a video or a sound effects, and I have a million sound effects, and it really sends a message. I mean, even a lot of the things that we see is that you don't learn from winning. It was easy. Hey, I did it right. No, you got lucky. I lost. What did I do wrong? Let's fix it. For example, today's broadcast, suddenly LinkedIn and Twitter disappeared. We had to start the broadcast over again. Okay? And that's the beauty of being live.
yes.
They do it on TV. If you watch any of the YouTube videos, any of the channels, these guys are always making mistakes. Now, a lot of times I make them on purpose just to try to get an audience reaction. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But I know we're getting short of time, and I
I want
don't
to
see
wrap.
anything
I've
here
got
that
some resources. So I've got some resources as we wrap up. But those of you who are watching, action steps you can take right now. The 3 R's: research. Research your clients, the contacts you know, contacts of record. Use agency directories, LinkedIn, and finally, when you know that's the right Mike Smith you've got, then you want to. Then you can Google and scoop up whatever else Mike Smith, who's in Orlando, has been up to. Relationships. Map the needs and the goals of players at all 5 layers, and then start to create requirements that generate constant small wins that build trust. I have resources for you. First, my book, Government Contracts Made Easier. Remember, that's because easy is fiction. Amazon #1 bestseller, book and a workbook. I tell you this not because I make lots of money selling books, but because if I can't be at your elbow answering all your questions, these are the things that I would want you to know. So there's a QR code. You can screenshot them. Next, I have a Players and Layers methodology resource hub. We've got videos, guides, examples, stories, an on-demand webinar that goes into Players and Layers in more detail. Grab it all. It's free. Free resources. Does it get better? In particular, you're going to find the GovCon Personas Guide, 22 pages of insight into what exactly is it that's on the mind of those players at each of those layers, what matters to them, and get you thinking about what to do, what to say, and what to ask to build relationships. I work with established companies in a private 8-week program that in 8 weeks or less means that you create and launch a custom federal sales plan, and if you do the work, emerge with a solid relationship pipeline in at least 3 places where you are confident you can win work. And I guarantee you that if you do the work, by the end of that 8 weeks, you will be confident in winning 10 times your investment back in working with me within 12 months of our start. Who gives you a guarantee? I was working with one of my mentors who said, if your guarantee does not make you squirm, it is not strong enough. So there you go. Find out more about the Federal Business Intensive on this webpage. Decide whether or not you think it could be for you. And if you want to have that conversation, I do a limited number of federal business breakthrough 30-minute conversations. My promise to you is if you qualify for that conversation, you will come away with at least 3 actionable ideas you can use right away, whether we work together or not. That's it. I want to make sure that you have a life you love, in a business you love, serving a country you love. Mike, thank you for inviting me. The floor is yours.
Well, I'm excited. And I've also put all those links into the chat, and we'll see what kind of traffic you get through your site. That
might be asking too much.
And that's okay too. Well,
questions you have, questions coming across from the platforms?
Platform, because everybody else died. Just so you know, ladies and gentlemen, she had no idea any of this stuff was going to pop up. None whatsoever. So the laughter you're seeing, for somebody who said, I never laugh, and I said, I guarantee I'll get you to laugh before we're done 3-4 times now. So I kept my promise.
You did.
And I think what we need to do is probably wrap up because you have exactly 4 minutes to your next appearance. So let's wrap this bad boy up. And you like the neon? That's just something
I do.
Yeah, I'll send it to you. You can use it.
Thank you. Very patriotic.
Does anybody notice the little guy in the bottom right-hand corner?
Too cute.
Now, I had John Barker on last week, and he said, what song is he dancing to? I have no idea. But he's dancing. That's all that matters. So, anyway, let's get over to our promo for everybody, and let me know in the comments, do we want Judy back again? Think long and hard about it, because I know most of you weren't paying attention the first time. That's why she gave you the QR codes, and that's why I put the links in the chat, and none now, but unfortunately we got, as they say, got done wrong by LinkedIn and Twitter. The stream failed on both of them, but we're here every Tuesday, and coming up next week, next Tuesday, same time, same station, is Mark Tower. And I really should have put up a slide or a scene on this. A good friend of both Judy's and mine, Eileen Kent, nicknamed me the Godfather of GSA. So next Tuesday, the Godfather of GSA will be interviewing the Godfather of government contracting. So it's called Godfather Interviews Godfather. And I guarantee it's going to be fun because I haven't talked to Mark in over 10 years. So it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Have a blast.
Oh, well, I'll make sure that you get a notification that the stream is coming up. You know what time it is, and I'm sure Eileen will be there, and a lot of the other folks. John, I know, will be there, and we'll see who else is there. But my whole goal with Lunch with Mike, which, by the way, was not my idea. I just wanted a live stream because when you stream out to Zoom off of, we use a Mac in our studio, and we use Ecamm Live. And yeah, I could give you an affiliate link and all that, but it's real broadcast software. And we're going to add a few more platforms at the same time. But I used to stream it to Zoom and then have to edit the video and come back. Judy, I'm going to let you go because you have exactly 1 minute. Thank you so much for being here. Let me finish with you folks. And we want to reach out to as many as possible. We are accepting clients. Just like Judy said, you have to go through the qualification process. And if you qualify for a contract, we'll help you. If you're interested in having advertisements done, video ads done, video emails put together so you can email them, we have all of that in our studio. And for lack of a better name, it's on the screen, Michael Price Productions, but who cares? But anyway, next week is Mark Tower, and the following week, I can't remember, but if you go to MarketUS.com and at the top, click on upcoming live streams, you'll see everybody through, I think it's January. We're now booking in February. So if you're interested in being part of this, let us know. You can reach us bottom left of the website. Let me know, and we'll find out your product and service and see if you want to stream it out to the world. So with that said, I don't see anything else here, and we will see you next week, as usual, Tuesday, 1 p.m. Eastern, on Lunch with Mike.